With the season just a few short months away from closing, it feels like just yesterday the season started. What should the Detroit Pistons' goals from now on be? We're going to talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Johnson with 1 second to go.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. And thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON. So for today's episode, I asked all of you guys to, give me something to talk about. We're in between days of the games. We've raved about the coaching staff over the past week. We've raved about some lineup changes. So I was like, you know what? I'm kind of out of some things to talk about until the next game. Let's see what the fans, let's see what the listeners want to hear me talk about. So I went to Twitter. I asked all of you guys to tell me what you guys wanted to hear. And I got a lot of responses, but the main one that I think I got quite a few of these. The main one I got was, what should be the Pistons' goals for the rest of the year that fans should look out for? And I think this is one of the more interesting questions for me to answer, because I feel like a week ago, my answer would have been completely different. But now with what we've seen over the past week, or really over the last few days, the last 2 games, I think my answer is completely different now than it would be a week ago. So let me try to get into it here. So real quick, let me grab a drink of this water real quick. It's super hot in this room. That ice water, man. Greatest drink out there. But anyways, what should be the Pistons' goal for the rest of the year? So one goal I think the Pistons should have is to move Bojan Bogdanovic for a first-round pick. It's something that I've been on about all season. You guys know this. I know some of you guys disagree. Some people want Bojan to stay. I'll just continue to push this argument right here. The Pistons need a first-round pick to use in trade discussions. They don't own their own first-round pick. It's currently owed to the New York Knicks. It's protected, so they're still going to use it, select it in this upcoming draft, but they can't use it in trades. It gets kind of complicated if they do. Teams aren't just going to be interested in that, really. They need another first-round pick to play with. And when I say they don't own their own first-round pick, I mean, so it's owed to the Knicks right now, protected, which means the Pistons can't trade a future first-round pick because they don't know, the NBA doesn't know when the Pistons pick is going to actually convey to the Knicks. So until it actually conveys, they can't use any first-round picks in trades like that unless they get super complicated with it. So I'm a big believer that a big trade's coming this offseason. If not a big trade, a trade of some significance that's going to help take this team to the next level. And in order for them to be players in that kind of trade, you have to have picks to offer. So if they can get a pick for Bojan Bogdanovic that they can then use either to, one, if it's in this year's draft, they can draft 2 players in the first round, or 2, use a future first-round pick they get from the Bojan Bogdanovic trade and then use in a deal to try to get somebody. That right there, I think, is probably like goal number 1. That also, you have to have some other teams play. You're not trading with yourself. So the Pistons do need help here, but I think they really should be trying to push for that, and I think that they are. So that would be my number 1 goal for the Pistons. Make sure you get a first-round pick at least for Bojan Bogdanovic. The second goal that I would have for this team the rest of the year, and this is where my answer would change from a week ago to now. I think it's very clear that the Pistons' goal for the rest of the year is Jaden Ivey. And when I say Jaden Ivey, I mean quite literally only Jaden Ivey. We raged on the last podcast about some of the lineup changes that they've made, the decision to basically bench Killian Hayes and cut his minutes by 10. He played 20 minutes last game. He had been one of their main bright spots this year. He had turned the corner. He was looking really, really good. Him and Jaden, they were both looking really good while they were playing together. Jaden was averaging like 15, 4, and 5. Killian was averaging, I believe, over the last like month or so, like 13, 5 on like 42, 35 shooting. They both were playing really well. But they decided to bench Killian Hayes, and they've put, for now, in the starting lineup, just pure spacing around Jaden Ivey with a role threat in Jalen Duren. So I think the main goal for the rest of the year is simply see a massive improvement from Jaden Ivey now that he's going to have the usage that he's going to get in the starting lineup. He's going to have a lot of usage. He's going to be asked to create everything. I think we're going to probably see a heavy dose of Ivey Duren pick and roll. They both have really good chemistry, so that actually could be a good thing. We've talked about their chemistry before in the podcast, but they really do look like they know how to play with each other and like playing with each other. And with that pick and roll, until one of them gets traded, or maybe none of them gets traded, but right now it's Bojan, Burks, and Bay, 3 quote-unquote shooters to space the floor around them, just run pick and roll with Jaden Ivey and see if he can develop as a point guard, see if he can develop as, a passer, making the right reads, not just the first immediate read to Duren rolling, but the cross-court passes to the corner guy when the weak side defender wants to tag on a Jalen Duren roll to the rim. Can he make a kick out to the opposite wing? Does all that kind of stuff. See if he can develop as a point guard. Not that he's going to have this opportunity to have this kind of usage in this starting lineup, but no one really, unless they keep Bojan and Bojan just takes up a lot of the usage, which I don't think is going to happen. There's no one really challenging him for reps or touches, I should say, in the starting lineup. So he's going to have basically a playground for the rest of the year if they continue to do this. And that's what they're going to be looking for. See this improvement from Jaden Ivey. So I think that's number 2 goal. And if you're, not really into the first goal because it's a trade, then obviously this should be goal number 1. And then the final goal that I would have for the rest of the Pistons season is, and this is asking a lot. This right here is asking a lot. I know it's like moving mountains, okay? It's like moving mountains out here, but I'm gonna make it a goal anyways. Can Dwayne Casey do anything different with the rotation? Can we stagger players? Can we see 9-man rotations? Can we see more lineups that don't just include bench in, bench out, or bench in, starters out, starters back in, bench out? Can we see some creativeness with the rotations? Because if you want to be completely honest, any other coach, I feel like a lot of coaches would have been able to do what they're trying to do with Jaden Ivey. If I'm right and that's what they're trying to do with Jaden Ivey, they would be able to do that without cutting Killian Hayes' minutes by 12 minutes. You would be able to do that without basically punishing a player who's been good for you. They would just stagger the guys. They would just stagger both ball handlers and just get Jaden Ivey a lot of minutes by himself. And then when Jaden Ivey comes out, get Killian back in. Of course, they'd have to share some minutes together, but you would just stagger them. It wouldn't be that hard. So I'd like for the rest of the year, if not the guard rotation, I'm just going to stop talking about the guard rotation. They obviously don't care about Killian Hayes, so screw that. How about we stagger Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren? Because we've already, like, the coaching staff, the front office, they came out and talked about how they see Isaiah Stewart as a 4. Isaiah Stewart is, they like the 2 big man lineup, supposedly, but we've seen Stu come off the bench the last 2 games. If he's going to come off the bench and you just, one, I'd like to see him just come back in the starting lineup, but then you just stagger them both, have one come out, and then have, when you want the next one to come out, bring that guy back in. But if you're going to keep Stu on the bench, can we get some staggering with the rotation to where we can at least see Duren and Stu play together some minutes throughout the game? Like, I'd like to see some creativeness with the rotation. Again, like I said, I know that's moving mountains. I know that's like the most difficult thing of possible life. But like that's my third goal. Just some creativeness with the rotations, for the love of God. And I think that could be cool. So that's it. Those are my 3 goals for the rest of the year with the Detroit Pistons. Let me know what some of your guys' goals you guys think the Pistons should have for the rest of the year in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the other things that you guys tweeted at me that you guys would like to see me talk about. We'll talk about that when we get back. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, PrizePicks. So I think this is a perfect day to use an example right here. So the championship games just ended. I just got done watching them. Go Chiefs, go Eagles to the Super Bowl. But let's say in the same day, you want to take an over on Jalen Hurts passing yards. You want to take the over on Patrick Mahomes passing yards, but then you also want to take the over, let's say, a LeBron James points within a game. You can put that into the exact same entry with PrizePicks, and that's why it's my favorite daily fantasy option. You pick 2 to 6 players to see if they will score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people, it's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app and go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. It's just that easy. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks.com. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so I had a few of you guys ask me this, and look, I didn't want to really talk about this, but I had enough of you guys ask about it for me to at least touch on it real quick. And I had a few of you guys ask me, why does it seem like that the coaching staff feels like they can't develop both Ivey and Killian at the same time? And my response to that I'm going to be quick with this. We've talked about this now the last 2 podcasts. I don't want to be, regurgitate the same thing over and over. One, let's see. I guess be fair and let's see if they change some things moving forward after this last loss to the Houston Rockets, who are missing 3 of their top guys. Let's see if they change anything. But in short, yeah, I think you can. I think it's pretty easy to do so. If you really want Ivey to get more ball handling reps, just stagger them, take Killian out first early, and then let Ivey play the rest of the first quarter by himself, and then the second quarter bring Killian back in and let him play the second quarter. I think it would be simple, and then you just bring Ivey back in at like the 5-minute mark. I think it would be really that simple. It's not hard, but I guess for whatever reason, the coaching staff feels like that's not something they can do, or they just simply don't want to do it. And I think that's what it is. I just don't think they really want to do it. I don't think they really value. I think quite clearly you're seeing that, as they should, they value Jaden Ivey's development very highly, but it looks like they don't really value. They must not care enough about Killian Hayes' development to go through the apparently extraneous circumstances of having to stagger players. So that's basically where I'm at with it. But yeah, I do believe you can develop both. We'll see if they do it. I really don't get this whole thing they're doing. It seriously makes zero sense to me. It's not hard, but I mean, if that's what they're going to do, then it is what it is. Let's move on from that, though, because we have talked about that a lot. I don't want to make that an entire segment, though. I was asked by a few of you guys as well, can you explain why Saddiq Bey and Hamidou Diallo are playing better? And I feel like Saddiq Bey's still been very much of a roller coaster the last few games. I don't know if I'd come out and say he's playing really well lately. I think, again, I just think he's been really up and down. I know actually the numbers, the thing with Saddiq is, and we actually talked about this with Joe Truck on like a few podcasts ago, but it feels like that, like when you look at the numbers for Saddiq, the numbers don't look bad, but then when you it feels like he's not playing as well as the numbers suggest. So the numbers say that he's averaging 20 a game over the last 7 games, shooting 45%, 43% from the field. So I guess he is playing pretty well. Maybe I'm just off with that. But 2 games ago against the Brooklyn Nets, you guys remember we came on the podcast and I talked about that third quarter where he really exploded for the majority of his 25 points. I said a lot of it was just coming on him hitting catch and shoot jumpers and straight line drives. That's just a simple way for him to succeed. It's not long drawn out ISOs. It's not him trying to break down defenders and drive to the rim on 3 people and try to force something. Just hit your catch and shoot threes. And when guys close out too hard, you attack them off the dribble and get to the rim, draw a foul, or get a layup. That's just as simple as that. Easy, make it easy on himself. And I feel like we have seen more of that lately. And then also, if you just want to be honest, he's just hitting more threes. I mean, that's like a very simple way of putting it too. Before he was shooting like 32% from the field, from beyond the arc. Last 4 games, he's shooting 45, or 6 games, he's shooting 45%. So I mean, it really just boils down to that. If he's gonna hit his threes, if he's going to hit more than 1 3 a game, if he's going to hit like 3 threes a game, he'll be straight. So it's pretty simple like that with him. With Hamidou Diallo, we've talked about that a lot on this podcast, that the Pistons have been, and you know what? I'm going to use the word. They've been somewhat creative with Diallo. I can't believe I'm saying it, but they actually have. They've been somewhat creative with Diallo. For a while there, they were just planting him in the corner and just having him sit there. And that just wasn't that. It doesn't make no sense for a guy who can't shoot it all from the corner and almost is unwilling to shoot from the corners. And you know what? I'm happy that he would be unwilling from the corners. I don't think any of us would like to see him shoot threes from the corner anyway. But beforehand, they were just putting him over there and just running offense. Now they're using him in screen and roll game. They're using him in the dunker spot. They have designs for him catching the ball on the move, going downhill. They're using him in a bunch of different ways instead of just planting him in one spot and just having him sit there. Diallo craves, or not craves. He really strives off of chaos and movement. He's not someone who can just create from stuff standing still. So if you get him moving with the kind of athlete he is, he's going to find random ways to score. He's going to find the basketball. He's going to find open areas to get to the basket. And a lot of times in the regular season, I mean, I hate to make it this blunt, but he just wants it a lot more than a lot of the opponents. A lot of guys don't want to do all that running around on defense. A lot of guys don't want to be, attacking spots on the floor in the offense, little open areas and cutting it off. Like, he's just super energetic. So he's just going to be more energetic than other people. And if he can use that by cutting into the lane and in pick and rolls and in dunker spots and cutting all that kind of stuff instead of just sitting in a corner, he's going to be really successful doing it. And he has been. To give him a ton of credit. He's been really, really good for the Pistons in his role over the last few weeks. And that's the thing. That's one of the things I really like about it, is that I was worried, and heck, maybe, the starting lamp is fluid, so who knows, we might see it. But one of the things I've been really happy about is that they haven't let his good play make them believe that, okay, let's put him in the starting lamp and have him do a bunch of other things that's not successful. They've kept him in this role. This role is perfect for him. They let him strive in this role, and they're not changing things. They're not moving up and down from the starting lineup and bench lineup. Not all of a sudden giving him more usage that he's playing well. No, let him keep striving in that role. That's good for him. Them staying there and just being an elite role player. That's something I feel like a lot of people don't understand. There's incredible value to just being elite in your role. You don't always have to be more than your role. If you can be excellent in the role that you are, you're providing extreme value to your team. So I hope that that's something that they continue to do, that they don't all of a sudden start giving the ball more or start asking him to do other things now that he's playing well. Just let him be elite in that role and get even better in that role, because he's been really good in it. So that's my explanation for Saddiq Bey and Hamidou Diallo playing so well as of late. What's funny is that a lot of you guys, when you guys are tweeting at me, where you guys were saying, oh, talk about how the weather is. Talk about, how's life going? How's other teams looking? Because apparently a lot of people just aren't tuning into these Piston games, which I don't know. Look, they lose a lot of games, a lot of tough games. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. That loss to the Rockets is pretty tough, especially when you take into account the fact that they were without Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., and Alperen Sengun. But for the rest of the year, you're going to get the Pistons' 5th overall pick. It looks like he's going to have a ton of usage. He's going to play a lot of minutes. And he's going to do it, looks like, at least you expect, next to the 13th overall pick that everyone likes, and Jalen Duren. Those guys are going to play a lot of minutes. They're going to be asked to do a lot of things. So even if they win or lose or get blown out, whatever, you'd think that fans would like to see both their young guys play really well and be a focus of everything. And I think that's what you're going to get. So if you're not tuning into Pistons games and you've just been listening to the podcast to have that be your update for everything, I would say if you're interested in those two young guys, you really should tune in for the rest of the year, because you're probably going to get a heavy dose of all of those, or those two guys right there. And yeah, if that's something you're interested in, definitely tune in for the rest of the year, whether they lose or not. So, but that's all I've got for this segment. Let's go ahead and move on to this sponsor. And then we're going to tackle the final questions that you guys have sent in for today's podcast. But first, I got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, TurboTax. Go to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so you can not do your taxes. Show your eyes the things that are not taxes. Unpack a moving box of not taxes. Taste, not taxes. Sing, not taxes, a lullaby. Hope not taxes, sleeps through the night. Grab a saddle and ride not taxes into the sunset. Where TurboTax, an expert, will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so you can relax. Feels good to be done with your taxes, doesn't it? Come to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Intuit TurboTax. Full service, products only. Video meeting while expert does your taxes required. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So for this final segment, I'm going to give you guys an argument for why you should continue to watch the Pistons for the rest of the year. Yes, I'm going to be super positive in this final segment. It's not going to last long because I don't know how many things I can go with here. But here's why you should continue to watch the Pistons the rest of the year. Like we talked about in the last segment, Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, they're going to have big roles for the rest of the year. You figure they're going to play a lot of minutes. You want to see this year's rookies play, tune in. The second reason why you should tune in for the Pistons the rest of the year is to see the funny ways in which they lose games down the stretch. I think that is a game of itself. It's fun. It can be funny if you look at it in a different light. If you look at it instead of, oh, my Pistons are losing, instead of, or rather look at it as, look at that. How'd they do that this time? That's something I haven't seen before. I think you can make it actually a fun game out of it. So that's another reason why you should be watching the Pistons the rest of the year. In all seriousness, though, there's a potential chance, I think, a legit chance that you may be seeing a different type of rotation with different players after the trade deadline. Bojan Bogdanovic may be traded. Alec Burks may be traded. Nerlens Noel may be traded. And I'm not going to lie, I'm starting to think there might be I don't think it's a big chance, but there's at least a small chance that some guys that we may have not thought would be moved may get moved at the deadline as well. So I think it's a legit chance that you'll be watching a new energetic team, a team that has had a injection of energy from new players joining them, which is always fun around the trade deadline. I think that kind of thing right there is usually what gets fans back into it when a team makes a trade. You get to see some new blood out there. So that's another reason why to continue watching this team. And you know what? I'm running out of options. I'm running out. That's about it. But that should be good enough, though. That should be good enough. This year's rookies getting that kind of usage, and simply the potential of seeing new players play with said rookies. That should be enough. Oh, actually, there is another one. There's another one that you should be watching for. Dwayne Casey has said that the starting lineup is fluid. Everything is fluid for the rest of the year. So let's see how many different starting lineups Dwayne Casey can come up with for the rest of the year. How many different rotations are we going to see for the rest of the year? That's a good drinking game you can do. Every time Dwayne Casey changes the starting lineup, take a drink. Every time he changes the rotation, take a drink. That's something else you could do for the rest of the year. I think that's a fun game as well. That could be super fun. And then obviously, another reason why you can continue watching. How many games can the Pistons lose? Will they be able to out-tank the Houston Rockets? They are half a game behind number one in the draft. They just successfully lost the tank battle, or won the tank battle, I should say, against Houston last game. Can they successfully out-tank the Houston Rockets, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Charlotte Hornets for the rest of the year? That's something that everyone should be keeping their eye on. That right there is the real race, right? That is the Pistons championship. Getting that number one pick, getting that top odds in the lottery, that right there is their championship. That's what they need to be playing for. Screw everything else. You know what we're playing for? We're playing for losses. And if we can lose more than you, that actually makes us better than you. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Okay, let's go ahead and do a lottery simulator, and then we'll wrap up the podcast. It got kind of dark there at the end. let's go ahead and sim the lottery. Of course, I don't feel like this happens. We ever get a good selection. So Pistons have the second best odds right now. We simmed the lottery, did one. Pistons fall 3 spots to number 5. This is why the Pistons need the first pick. They absolutely need, or not the first pick, but the number 1 odds. Because, yes, everyone in the top 3 has the same odds, but then that makes sure the Pistons cannot fall anywhere farther than 5. And that is a major deal because the Pistons got lucky one time. Can't believe it. They got lucky one time, but it's not going to happen again. I guarantee they're going to fall from anywhere they get. So let's go ahead and just go to 1. And if we do fall, let it fall to 2 or 3. 2 or 3 or something. Don't fall too far. And at the very worst, we fall to 5. But if you're 2, then you can fall to 6. 3, you can fall to 7. Like that kind of stuff is just very scary. A game I don't want to play. So yeah, let's win that tank battle, everybody. Let's keep losing. We're gonna lose more than you. That's what matters now. Sigh. That's all I've got for you guys though on today's podcast, man. Have fun watching the game tonight. Hope you guys had fun watching the NFL championship games. For those of you guys who are into football, I thought we had obviously the first game, the Eagles 49ers was a pretty trash game, but the Chiefs and Bengals game I thought was pretty nice, even though that dude completely lost the Bengals the game doing an absolutely stupid play at the end. I couldn't believe that. But let me know in the comment section, who do you guys got winning, the Eagles or the Chiefs? Let me know that on Twitter at Hookah Hill or in the comments. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. Enjoy the game tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe, go Pistons, and peace out.